Okay, the second prompt, challenge. In what ways will this experience push you from the familiar and into the unknown? So, for the study abroad, being in another country for 2 months, which I've never done before, I've never been abroad outside the US, and being somewhere where the majority language is not English on its own is already fairly challenging enough. But outside of that, there's also the reason I'm going is I need to improve my spoken Japanese. That's my main reason for going. I want this experience in order to be able to improve my ability to speak Japanese naturally, so that way I can use that as a skill later on. And so, in Japanese, there are certain social connotations that change the way that you speak with one another. So, when you're talking to superiors or to professors or bosses or whatnot in Japanese, you change the entire way that you speak. And I've only just learned this in my Japanese classes, and that is something I'm going to have to get used to, because if I want to use my Japanese skills professionally in the future, I'm going to have to get used to that. It's a very different way of speaking, very humbling yourself, honoring the other person who's above you, which is a bit opposite of how I usually talk. Not that I'm like disrespectful, but I tend to be more casual, and that will not be the case. That's not a very attractive form of speaking in Japan, and so I'm going to have to adapt the way that I speak in order to be able to get something useful out of this. Vice versa, speaking in Japanese to people who are your friends or people who are kind of in the same given social rank as you use a much more plain way of speaking, which is surprisingly challenging. Being able to use that in a way when most of what I've been taught so far in my Japanese classes is like the more formal way of speaking. So either way, this is going to be, I'm going to have to get used to speaking in both of those different contexts. And that's going to be challenging in and of itself, because I'm using grammar and vernacular that I'm not going to be used to. And so it's going to be very difficult. Even aside from just the language aspect, travel in Japan is very different than the US. The US is very car centric. I can't bring my car. I don't have the money to bring my car, and frankly, I don't really want to. And so it's all mainly public transportation, subways, trains. I've never been on a subway. This is going to be very, very different for me. Which is, it's good. It's good for me in order to be in a new environment, see a new way of doing things and whatnot. It's just going to be a difficult adjustment.